I don't think there has ever been a movie out there that like made me just like think about it like days upon days after I watched it, you know, and not necessarily saying that that's a good thing, because All That We Destroy, man, it's an original Hulu, original, whatever you want to call it, like over on Hulu, obviously, but like it's just like it's something special in like the worst way possible, you know. And I feel really bad for like nitpicking, not even nitpicking, but just like saying how terrible it is, because like a lot of people were, I'm assuming a lot of people were involved in making it and stuff like that, but like sadly it did not deliver like in the slightest. And you could argue that like I guess like the concept behind it was like interesting, but like whenever they did touch on the concept, or like if they had like original ideas and stuff, they didn't stick around to like resolve it or anything. Like it seemed like it had too many ideas and they didn't even stick the landing on any single one of them. So I'm gonna like just address, I guess, do a review or a synopsis or whatever. It's probably just gonna end up being like a rant, I'm not gonna lie, because this like I said, man, it's something special. So like when it first starts all, like the first thing you see is an unconscious woman and she's getting dressed, so red flags off the gate, like straight up as soon as the movie starts, and you get a sense of like just a knowingness, I guess, is what they were trying to go for. And I was kind of hooked, I'm not gonna lie, from the very beginning, because I'm like, okay, girl, not conscious, she's getting dressed by somebody, like I would like to know who that somebody is. And then you get introduced to Spencer, and spoiler alert, he's a freaking crazy son, or they have you believe he's a crazy son, I'll get to that later, but like it's just like, it's weird. So Spencer, he just starts pouring wine for Ashley, I didn't even say her name, but like the unconscious woman is Ashley, and she wakes up and Spencer is like right there just staring at her, so that's kind of another red flag going on. But what I tried to like piece together was like, oh okay, maybe Ashley is Spencer's girlfriend and like she lost her memory or something, because one of the first things she says is like, who are you, where am I, and stuff like that. So I assumed it was kind of like an amnesia thing going on, and he was trying to like help her remember, because he poured wine and he's like, oh, you like wine, and then he's like, they have like, it's set in the future, by the way, I didn't even address that, but like he just says, hey, play our song, and then like the smart house thing, whatever you want to call it, starts playing a song, and then she obviously has no idea what's happening, like and then freaking out of nowhere he just decides to start strangling her. Like I'm talking like not even like a second, doesn't even give her time to like process what the hell is happening, and he just starts strangling her, bashing her head against the freaking floor, and then she dies. Like spoiler alert, you know, like this was like not even 5 minutes into the movie and I'm just sitting there like, what the hell is happening, you know? But yeah, he literally gives her like not even a second to understand what the heck is going on, and it cuts to like the title card, and then you just see him. It was kind of a cool concept, I'm not gonna lie, like it shows the letters for the title, but you see like the background with the letters, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So he's dragging her dead body across the yard in broad daylight, I might add. Like, yeah, you could argue that they're in a secluded location and like it's pretty much desert all around them, and we kind of understand that later on in the movie, but like from the very beginning you're just like, what the actual hell? And like, I'm not gonna lie, it did grip me, but like for all the wrong reasons, like I stated before, you know? So you then find out that like he puts her inside this like metal box, which is like kind of connected to this cloning thing that the mom is orchestrating, you know? Like you find out that the mom is like the head of this like highly classified thing. I don't even know like what to call it, in all honesty, because we don't get much into it. Like we just know that she's like the head and her name is on the building, but as far as I know, like they didn't even address anything after that, you know? Like they did kind of hint at, oh, what I'm working on in my home lab is very important, it has to do with cloning and stuff like that, and like that's another thing, man. Like I didn't even get to that part. Like the main synopsis of the movie is that the mom decides to clone Ashley over and over and over again to try to help Spencer, and like you could kind of understand that like Spencer is kind of cuckoo crazy. Like I'm trying not to like get too off the subject, but like he was very, very sinister. Like like I said, at the first 5 seconds of the video, he decides to strangle and kill Ashley. So like that's working for him, I guess. So after they talk and it's just like, oh, you need to write down stuff or I can't help you. And I'm like, Help him do what? Kill people? Like, I know it's a clone and it's technically not a real person, but the clone doesn't know that, man. Like, poor Ashley. I felt bad for her the entire freaking movie. And then another thing is like the technology in this. I kind of stated at the beginning, it takes place in the future, like obviously making cloning possible and stuff, but the mom is like, she puts this little bead thing on her temple and then she just goes into this like VR world to talk to, I'm assuming is Spencer's father. Like, they kind of hint at it, but they never fully address who he is. So at the very beginning, it was just some random dude. I kind of thought it was her psychiatrist or something, but then they start talking about like weird things like, oh, you need to watch him do the murders and stuff. And I'm just like, why? Like, I understand you're a scientist and you want to like better understand your subject, put that in quotations, even though it's your freaking son. But yeah, they're in this like virtual world thing talking and stuff like that. And then she gets out of it and then they decide that like, oh, well, we need to make Ashley real. Like, that's the number one thing that Spencer kept complaining about, was that Ashley didn't feel real enough and stuff. And I'm like, well, bro, if you give her like more than 5 seconds to like try to comprehend what's going on, like maybe she'll feel a little more real. But you could understand that like she doesn't have her old memories because she's not Ashley. Like, she's a clone of Ashley. She just looks like Ashley in appearance alone. But anyway, the mom decides like, hey, I need to have some time with Ashley, you know, like the sensible thing to do. Like, I need to talk to her, help her understand her past and stuff, and hopefully it makes her feel real for you. And Spencer agrees, and which obviously he would, you know. And the mom basically tells Spencer like, hey, don't interact with the outside world, like I'm doing all of this for you, which you could kind of understand, man. But then even then, like, I was mad at the mom the entire time. I'm just like, this is the worst way possible. Like, when you find out your son is a murderer, like, and this is way too early on to actually convince me to know that he's a murderer. He just like has this fixation on this one girl named Ashley, and like I thought it was an ex-girlfriend. To this time, like during the movie, I still thought it was an ex-girlfriend or something, but that doesn't explain why he just like outright killed her, you know? Like, that made no sense to me. So obviously I was intrigued, so I wanted to keep watching, but I was kind of furious the entire time I was watching it. So like, that's not what you want to do in a movie, you know? So anyway, like Spencer decides like, oh, okay, I'll go on walks and stuff like that to be, so my mom and Ashley could be alone so they could like connect more, and hopefully Ashley feels real and stuff. So he decides to go on a walk and he sees this girl like unpacking in I guess a neighborhood. Like, we literally only get like not even a shot of the house, man. We get a shot of like the car and like barely the very front of the house. So like she's unpacking and Spencer's just staring right behind her, like just nonchalant, I guess. But and then she turns around and is just like, oh, are you just gonna stand there? Are you gonna help me? So he's like, oh yeah, right. So he actually seems normal in this scene, you know, like he doesn't seem like a just cold-blooded killer and stuff like that, like the movie was trying to portray him as. So he helps her move out or move into the house and stuff, and he's like, oh, are you living with your folks and stuff? And he says the last name. I forgot the last name. I don't even remember the new girl's name. I'm just gonna call her New Girl. The way she does things is weird. She's just like has this huge smile and she's like, the entire time, like I thought she was gonna be the psycho at the very end, you know, like reverse the roles, and like she was the one that was gonna kill Spencer. But no, nothing ever came to that. Like, she does continuously like keep popping up and stuff like that for like, I guess, to drive the plots forward. And that's another thing I need to address. Like, there is hardly anybody in this movie. Like, you see like streets and stuff, barely any streets, but like you see some aspects of like a real world going on, but like no one's in it, you know? It's just the main characters and then the, like, I'm talking like maybe 2 side characters, like the dad, and there's a couple of people in an art museum. I'll get to that in a little bit. But then after Spencer gets home, obviously the mom's mad because it's like, oh, you're not supposed to go out in the real world. Like, what if someone knows? What if you start killing again and stuff? Like, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what she says. But anyway, it goes into this like flashback sequence of like how Spencer met Ashley, and I'm like, oh, finally, like some clarification like of what the hell is going on, like who is Ashley to Spencer, you know? So you see this car driving down the road, not even a road, it's like a dirt road, like they're literally in the middle of nowhere, and I guess it's like a desert nirvana or something like that. But even Spencer was like, oh, I live like 30 or like half a mile that way and stuff. So like apparently there's like nothing in this general area, you know? But like you see a car going down the street and he's just like, you hear shouting of a man driving the car, and you hear him like, get out of my car, you bee, and stuff like that. Like, he starts cussing and stuff, and you see Ashley, but she does look different because she has her makeup on, she has like her outfit that she picked out and stuff. Like, this is the real Ashley, and like obviously the clone is a fake and stuff like that. But it goes into this like she's just standing there like menacingly, but like in all honesty, that's Spencer, like I'm not gonna lie, but like she's standing there and she's just like, oh, what am I gonna do? You left me without my cell phone and stuff. So like kind of like foreshadowing what's about to happen, but Spencer's again just staring at her behind her, just like, you know, like I guess shell-shocked or something, like a girl. But like anyway, like he's just like, hey, you want to go to my house and like maybe call for help and stuff like that? And she's like, oh well, there's nobody that I could call, I guess. Like I guess she's like an outcast, and like you find out she's like, oh, I'm gonna go to the women's restroom, or I need to go to the restroom, and she decides to like do drugs like cocaine, just snorts a huge, I'm talking a huge line of cocaine there, and then she's like, oh well, do you have anything to drink, like can you pour me wine and stuff? There's where Spencer got the idea that she likes wine, and the mom obviously isn't there, like she's still at work. This is before she decides to like just stay at home and like protect Spencer at all times, you know. But then like the flashback kind of breaks up into two different parts, like one when he meets Ashley, and then the second one when he kills Ashley. But I'm just gonna talk about it like into one chunk, you know. So like they go into his room, and then Ashley starts like flipping pages of his sketchbook, and Spencer's kind of like upset at first, like you could tell he's visibly like nervous about it, but then she decides to like, oh well, you're a really good artist, you know, you should draw my next tattoo. And then she shows her the tattoo, and it's Ouroboros, you know, the skin eating the tail, it's the continuous cycle thing going on. But he says, oh, Ouroboros, and she's like, what? Like she has no idea. So like, why put a tattoo on your body that you have no idea what it's about? But anyway, I'm getting way off topic here. So anyway, she's just like starts rubbing up against Spencer, you know, like the song comes on, which again, every time Spencer sees the clone, he's like, play our song, and then that song comes on. So she's like, oh, I love this song, it reminds me of my grandma because she played it all the time. So I guess that's where he got the idea that it's their song now. And she starts kind of like, not necessarily twerking or nothing, but kind of getting close to Spencer and stuff, and they kind of start dancing, and he goes to touch her boob, and she's just like, whoa, like calm down, you know. And out of nowhere, like I'm talking like kind of like the very beginning of the scene, like out of nowhere she just decides like, or Spencer decides, hey, I'm just gonna kill this girl. So he starts strangling her and bashing her head. I guess that's his signature move, like it seems like that's the only thing he knows how to do, except the very end. But he starts bashing her head, and then she's dead, puddle of blood, like a huge puddle of blood happening, you know. And then mom comes in, and it's just like, where, or like, who is with you? Because there's still two glasses of wine on the countertop, you know, and one has lipstick. So she's like, what's going on? Like there's somebody else in the house with you. And so he just nonchalantly is just like, oh yeah, here she is, and like dead obviously in his room still, because he doesn't have two brain cells apparently. But like I kind of felt bad for Spencer like towards the end, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But like mom obviously is upset and slaps Spencer, and it's just like, you promised you would get better and stuff. So obviously this happened in the past, but not necessarily to humans. Like there is this one, I'm gonna get ahead of myself, I'm trying not to ramble, I swear. I have this like list, and I'm trying to pinpoint like in order. But anyway, like the whole like revelation of the mom's plan is just like, oh, does anybody know she's here? And he's like, no, she was stranded on the side of the road. And she's like, are you sure? Like he's like, yeah, and doesn't have a cell phone or anything. So she's like, okay, well, we need to hide this, like make sure the cops don't know anything. Like you could put her in this one chamber, which is the metal box that he keeps putting the clones in, and then I could like blah 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 science words, you know. I don't even think it made sense in the movie, but the like break down her body in a molecular level, I can't even say it. Well anyway, like after all the flashbacks and stuff, it cuts to Spencer, and well, first the new girl, I guess, lack of a better word, I really don't remember her name, but new girl shows up and it's just like, hey, I made cookies because Spencer helped me out. And the mom is obviously like, you weren't supposed to do that, you're not supposed to go to the outside world. I should have talked about that at the beginning there, but like it's still like, okay, well, like he did a good thing, like he's trying to be normal. And even Spencer says that, like, why are you mad at me? Like I'm trying to make friends, I'm trying to be normal. I thought this is what you wanted to help me get better, you know, instead of just freaking killing senseless clones, you know. So anyway, like Spencer decides, hey, I'm gonna make a portrait, you know, of this girl that helped me, or made cookies and is nice to me and stuff, which is a normal thing to do when you're an artist, you know. And then he goes to her house again, which even though the mom doesn't want to, but every time he goes on a walk, he pretty much goes to the new girl's house now. So like their friendship is blossoming and stuff. But then again, like behind the scenes, you have the mom trying to like make Ashley, or the clone Ashley, and like it's kind of confusing and all over the place and stuff. But I did feel bad for Spencer, you know. I'm like, oh, he's actually trying to do like a real world thing, like make friends and stuff, not be like the outcast that his mom apparently wants him to be, because she does say like stay in the house, don't talk to anybody, don't interfere with the outside world and stuff. And that must have been miserable for him, man. Like no wonder he's killing clones. But anyway, the girl is like, hey, she comes to his house because they're jogging and stuff, and they kind of talk about trauma and stuff. And she's like, oh, I had a eating disorder, but I went to a therapist. And he's like, you go to therapy? And she's like, yeah, I thought everybody went to therapy. And Spencer kind of hints at his past here. He's like, well, I used to, but like something happened, like the mystery unveils and stuff. Not unveils, but like plot thickens, I guess, lack of a better word. So she's like, hey, there's this art exhibit, and you being an artist, you should like come over and stuff like that, you know. Like she's trying to like be buddies with him or something more. But like she invites Spencer, and then he's kind of just like dumbfounded, and then he looks on the ground and he sees one of clone Ashley's like hair pieces with like a piece of skin attached to it, like, so he puts his foot over it, like hoping new girl doesn't see it and stuff. And then she's just like, oh, well, think about it, okay, blah, I'm gonna leave now, bye. Well, the entire time she's doing like this with her face, like it's very unsettling, I'm not gonna lie. I still think she's the murderer. But anyway, they're in the art exhibit and stuff like that, and Spencer's like talking to her and talking like, oh, I've never been to an art exhibit before. And she's just like, that's really hard to believe because you're such a good artist, you know, like you really should go out more and stuff. And then he finally opens up like, oh, well, like this is what happened in my past. And the whole like thing that started this like, I guess, killing spree, lack of a better word, he just killed like one girl and multiple clones, but like he's like, oh, well, we were playing in the jungle gym and I was kind of the outcast, not because of everybody else, but it was because that's what he wanted, you know? And then he was like, they were playing King of the Castle or King of the Hill, whatever it was called, where you have to like climb the very top of the jungle gym, and like the one that's on the very top gets to be king. So like he wanted to play that game, so he decided to, and he felt like alive, and like he was able to make his own choices and stuff. But he kind of got a little carried away, and he pushed a little girl off. This is when he's little as well, but like he pushed the little girl off the very top, and like she cracks her head, like foreshadowing, I guess, cracks her head on the ground below her and like dies. So the mom instantly pulls Spencer out of school and stuff like that. And like to me it was like very, very rushed. Like they could have like addressed like, hey, you went to therapy and stuff like that, even though they did hint at it. But I would have liked to see like more, like, I know like the cast wasn't that big, so like they couldn't have like a person for the therapist and stuff. And little Spencer, like they didn't even show little Spencer, like it was just like the girl dead on the ground, like while he was talking about it, you know? Well, anyway, the new girl like decides, hey, come over, I wanted to show you this, like unaffected by what the hell Spencer just said, even though she did say like, oh, you were just a kid, like it wasn't your fault. Like she kind of understood, you know, which like it makes sense because they are children, and like some children's do like act irresponsibly, you know, like they're kids. What else are they gonna do? They want to be king of the castle, so he's gonna push her off. He didn't know she was gonna die, you know? Like I still feel bad for Spencer at this time, man. Anyway, the new girl's like, hey, I want to show you something, and turns the corner, and it's the self-portrait like just hanging in the exhibit. And obviously like Spencer is freaking out, you know, the entire time watching this. He's just like, what are you doing? Like you didn't even ask if you could do this, which as an artist, like I totally understand if you draw something for somebody, like that's very personal, man. Why would you just like put it in an art exhibit for literally everybody to see, even though you barely see anybody? I think there was like 2 people that passed behind them while they're talking in the exhibit just for trying not to break the immersion. But the entire time, man, there is like no one in this world. It's just, like I said, it's just the main characters. And like she's just like, hey, calm down, you're really good at art, and like everybody needs to know that like your artwork does belong in an exhibit. And like I talked to the guy running the exhibit, and like he's friends with my family and stuff, and like he could pull strings, and like if you make more artworks like this, you can make your own exhibit and stuff. And like that's kind of cool for Spencer, you know? Like he's actually, like I said, man, he's trying to be a normal person with this new girl, but the mom's still fixated on him like wanting to kill a clone. Like I honestly do not know what her plan is, but you kind of get a sense of like, oh, well, he does kind of feel better after he kills her, like, because whenever he does end up killing the Ashley that the mom was working on, you know, so she decides to do it all over again. And it's just confusing mess, man. Like, I am not on the mom side at all. I know she wants to like protect the son and stuff, but there are better ways to do that, man. Instead of just like artificially cloning a real person and having your son kill her over and over again until like he feels better about whatever the hell he's trying to do. But she even like goes into the like the VR world. I'm gonna do that every time I say VR, but like goes into the VR world occasionally to talk to the father. I'm gonna put that in quotations because it was never fully addressed, but like she's just like, oh, it's working. Like, he actually felt real and he hugged me for the first time in years and stuff like that. So she in her own like sick, twisted mind, like she thinks this is working, I guess, for Spencer, but you have to argue that it is not, man. Like, you're just raising an even stronger serial killer, you know, because the dopamine's gonna end, man, and like that one killing with the clone isn't gonna be enough, so he's gonna go out and like kill other people. But I'm getting way off topic here. So anyway, like the second at clone Ashley like is talking to the mom and stuff like that, and she's just like, oh, well, like what happens after death? And the mom's just like, nothing. Like, your heart stops and that's it. Like, that's a bit vague, man. And obviously the clone starts crying, and then she's like, oh, well, look at this, like, video of Spencer as a little kid playing with the dog. And she's like, oh, well, where's your dog now? I didn't see him. And she's like, oh, he's right here, like buried in the ground, like he's dead. And then she's just like, oh, well, what happened? And he's like, well, something very, very bad happened. They're trying to hint that Spencer kills the dog, you know? And she's like, oh no, that's terrible. And she's just like, oh, well, he stayed alive for like a week trying to fight, and like it's so important that you fight for what you believe in and stuff. I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with this mom, man? Like, she's so like disconnected from the outside world itself, kind of like what she's trying to do to Spencer, you know? And then like the clone looks over and is just like, oh, did that dog die as well? And like you kind of get this sense of like, yeah, Spencer's killing the pets, so that's why they don't have any more pets around, you know? So anyway, they're talking in the garden. Clone Ashley and the mom is talking in the garden, and she's like, oh, well, I had this dream like where I couldn't breathe and I saw hands and stuff, foreshadowing like, hey, she's starting to like, the clone is starting to remember what the other clones and the original Ashley has gone through, you know? Like, she keeps having these like visions. Well, I say she keeps having them, but you only see it one time, and then it kind of hints at that she uses it as an excuse to say, oh, I just had a bad dream. So I don't know if she keeps having the nightmares or if it's just like a one-time occurrence. Again, like, this movie is like it has decent ideas, but like it doesn't orchestrate them nearly as good. Like, they don't get fleshed out at all. So anyway, the new girl like walks to the house, and like, well, I should clarify, like, whenever she drops off Spencer after the art exhibit, you know, she looks in the mirror and she sees clone Ashley like staring back at her, and then she gets super suspicious out of nowhere. And like, I was kind of thinking, I'm like, well, it could be the sister, you know? Like, Spencer never did clarify that he had a bigger family, that he had siblings and stuff, so it could have been his sister. But she was just like so concerned, you know, like just out of nowhere. So she goes home, and then obviously the mom is upset again, and she's like, I'm doing all this for you, like, why don't you just like stay here and stuff? And he's like, well, you told me not to interact with Ashley, clone Ashley, until she's ready and stuff. So like, there's kind of a conflict there going on. And so like, because I guess new girl saw a woman like out the window, she decides, hey, I'm gonna go snoop around their house and stuff like that. So she's like, I'm not even joking, like, usually she's like walking to the house like nonchalantly, like as you do if you're trying to look for a friend, but like she's actually like trying to sneak around, you know, like, and she sees the mom and clone Ashley talking in the garden, so she decides to take a picture of them, which I guess is okay. Like, in her mind, like, she's suspicious. So I don't know if like she saw a missing poster of Ashley and that's why she's concerned, but again, it never addresses that, you know? So anyway, like, a little notification goes on her phone like whenever she's done taking a picture, and she's just like, and she has to hide, and then Ashley's like, what was that? And the mom's like, I have no idea. So she goes to the side of the building where the clone new girl, oh my god, like, there's so many freaking clones, but new girl is hiding there, and then she decides to hide behind the pillar instead of where she was. So it's just like, oh, she's gone, like, oh, like the suspense. But like, to me, I'm just like, okay, like, can this hurry up? Like, I'm starting to get really annoyed with exclusively the mom. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm getting very upset with the mom at this point. So anyway, like, the new girl has, I guess she cross-examines the image or something like that, and she finds out that like, hey, she is a missing person, like things aren't right in their house. So again, she tries to go back to the, well, I guess I should clarify, like, the mom's work keeps calling her and it's just like, you need to show up. And she's like, my name's on the building, like that should be clarification enough. And she's like, no, you've been gone. Again, they don't give like a legitimate time frame, but I'm assuming it's been a while, you know? And then you just like, I don't know, like even the work, like when she's like, okay, fine, I'll be there, and you go there, there's no people around, man. There's like maybe 2 cars in the parking lot, and they say like, oh, the board's ready to meet you and stuff. Like the I'm gonna assume secretary again, they give me nothing, but it's like the helper of the mom, like at her work, like she's like, oh, the board's here to meet you and stuff. And she's like, okay, but then she gets a text on her phone that's like, the new girl texted Spencer, because she monitors the crap out of Spencer, by the way. Like all of his text messages goes to her phone, like all of like where he's at. Every time he walks, it says like, he's blah, blah, blah away from home and stuff. Like she monitors the ever-loving hell out of him, which is, again, I feel very bad for Spencer. So anyway, she's just like, oh, I have to go and stuff, which obviously is a cop-out because they couldn't afford to hire people to represent a board, I'm assuming. So like, you just see like the secretary in the front of the building, no other people around, and then the mom's just like, as soon as she gets there, she's like, I have to go, something's wrong, and she goes back to the house. Well, anyway, the new girl decides like, hey, I'm gonna confront Spencer because he's not answering my text. So she just like out of nowhere just opens the door and walks in, and Spencer, like the clone Ashley, is locked in her room. The mom locked her in there so she wouldn't like try to leave or anything. And then Spencer's just like, to the new girl's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, well, you didn't get any of my text. Like that's literally how she is. But like, no shade on the actor or actress at all, but like I couldn't help it that something was definitely wrong. But it was towards the end of the movie at this point, so I was like, okay, well maybe there still could be like a out of nowhere left field change or something, but I was starting to get like, it was getting very bleak at this point, you know? So anyway, like clone Ashley decides, hey, I'm gonna try to break out of my room. So there's a freaking toolbox in her closet. Like, wouldn't you want to take that out when you're the mom, like making sure that no, like your freaking subject doesn't escape? But anyway, like she finds a hammer and she breaks open the doorknob and she's just like, oh, I'm out. And then she starts walking to Spencer's room, and this happened before, I should have elaborated, but like she goes into Spencer's room and she sees the sketchbook and it's just a bunch of pictures of her, and then like First, it starts off with like just an image of her, and she's like, oh, okay. And then she flips the page again, and it's like her with a bunch of ants on her, and she's like, okay, that's a little weird. And then she takes the sketchbook into her room, and then she flips over to the next page, which is just her like with blood over out, and she's like obviously visibly dead in the drawing, you know? So she freaks the hell out, and then the mom walks in and is just like, oh, what's wrong? And she's like, oh, I had a bad dream, and she hides the sketchbook in the pillow, and then that's whenever she's like, oh, I have to leave and stuff and blah 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 blah. And then now we're at this point where the new girl goes into the house and Spencer's just like, oh, you're not supposed to be here and stuff, and she's like, who's that girl, Spencer, and stuff like that. And he starts freaking out, and then she's like, call 911, because he starts trying to strangle her. You know, his signature move. If he was a wrestler, I guess this would be like his go-to move, but he starts strangling her. She finally like, it's just like, call 911 and stuff. So everything is automated. It's from the future, even though like you can't really tell. It's just like their phones look really futuristic, I guess, and then like the whole VR situation going on. But yeah, she decides to call the cops, and Spencer like freaks out, starts strangling her, and then she like reaches for a wine bottle and she finally grabs it, you know, like the classic thing we've seen like multiple times where someone's trying to reach for something and they can't quite get it, but just in the nick of time they get it. Well, like she bonks him on the head. It doesn't shatter, which props, but it shatters once it falls on the ground, but like it bonks him on the head and he's just like, oh, like that, and then he kind of falls to the ground and she runs. And the entire time that was happening, you know, like clone Ashley is like, she's kind of hiding in the house because she hears someone coming, you know? So she goes into the lab, the mom's lab, and she starts uncovering like the secrets of her past. Like she starts seeing like stuff on the walls and stuff about like, oh, what's going on and stuff like that, and like her childhood and stuff. And then she starts freaking out because obviously it says like, oh, we need to make her more human, we need to make her real for Spencer and stuff. So she's freaked out, and then the mom comes into the house, sees, oh, I need to address something. Like Spencer, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure where the broken glass comes from. I'm assuming it's the wine bottle, but like Spencer just grabs the deal like when the choking doesn't work, you know, and just stabs the crap out of New Girl, and like she's dead. And then the mom walks in as soon as that happens, and she's, or not as soon as that happens, but like when she's dead on the floor, and then she's just like, oh, you said not to do this again, blah 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 blah, I'm doing this for you, blah, the classic cliche that like the mom keeps addressing, like she's a broken record at this point. Anyway, they look at her phone and it says like 4 missed calls from cops, you know. I think it said 911, but still it'd be funny if it said cops. But like she's just like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go to the lab. You take her to that metal box thing so she could decompose and some blah, 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 blah. And so he's doing that, you know, and then you hear, well, I should address, like, the mom goes to the lab and sees clone Ashley there, you know, and she's obviously upset, and she has the hammer ready, and then she's like, oh, you need to calm down, blah, 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 I'm trying to help you and stuff, and just whacks the crap out of the mom with the hammer. I thought she died, I'm not gonna lie, because, like, we don't see her for an extended period of time. So Spencer obviously hears that, so he's dragging New Girl on the floor, or in the yard, I guess, like, getting ready to put her in the box, and then he just leaves her there, like, in the middle of the yard, you know? And so Spencer goes in the room and is just like, oh, Mom, what happened and stuff, and she's lying on the floor, and then the New Girl's just like, I don't know why she doesn't, like, use the hammer. I guess she tried to, but he knocked it off. I honestly don't remember, and I didn't write it down, but, like, they, like, she runs away and stuff, and they're outside, and she decides to hide, and he's just like, Ashley, like, he's yelling the entire time, you know, trying to find her, like, as typical serial killer, even though I still kind of feel bad for Spencer, I'm not gonna lie, man, because, like, it's the mom's doing, man, this entire time, like, all of his actions, it's the mom's doing, you know? Well, anyway, the New Girl, like, decides, oh, I'm just gonna, like, combat him, like, with my bare hands. So punches Spencer and stuff, and then they get into a tussle and everything, and then she does Spencer's signature move to Spencer, you know, like, starts strangling him and, like, bashing his head against the sidewalk, and, like, there's a huge puddle of blood, and as soon as that happens, man, the cops pull up, and then obviously it looks like she's the murderer, so, like, they book her and everything, and then the mom comes out and she's like, Spencer, and she's like, oh no, my boy, oh, you know, like, crying over his, like, dead body, and, like, the entire time you just see Ashley, like, in the cop car, just like, I'm finally away from these psychopaths. But even though she's the clone of Ashley, so they didn't really address that, like, with the psychological damage that she's gonna go through, you know? And then anyway, like, it cuts to, like, I'm not even joking, like, it cuts to just, like, the mom cloning Spencer again. Like, there's this, like, black ooze, I didn't even address it, because, like, why? But, like, there's this black ooze tub thing that the clones always, like, you know, like, come out of, and they're covered in ooze, and all you see is their mouth, which is kind of a cool effect, I'm not gonna lie. It was in, like, the poster and stuff like that, but it's probably gonna be the thumbnail. But, like, it just cuts to, like, Spencer doing it, like, the thing, and then it just ends, man, and there's so many questions I have. So, like, all in all, man, it's just a weird movie. Like, the concept, I guess you could argue, like the concept was there, like, it was kind of a cool concept of, like, cloning and stuff like that, but, like, do something with it, you know? Like, don't just make, like, a meat puppet for your son to murder every time. And, like, I lost track of how many times he killed clones, man, and, like, it seemed like the first time doing this in the movie, like, wasn't his first time at all. And, like, I know I'm missing some key details and stuff like that, but this is just, like, my synopsis, like, my, I guess, rant, I guess, lack of a better word, you know? But, like, all in all, it was so freaking crazy, and, like, I really wish there was more to it. Maybe make a series out of it, because, like, the ideas you had were kind of cool, but because you didn't touch on them at all, you just, like, okay, well, they're there, and that's it, let's move on, let's go to the next thing. Like, it wasn't appealing to me at all, and, like, the sad thing is that, like, this movie was stuck in my head for, like, I think 2 days now. I'm constantly thinking about this, and I'm like, yeah, I really need to tell people about this, you know? So, like, that's why I'm making this video. But all in all, man, it was a wacky ride, and, like, I can't say I enjoy it, man, because the entire time I was watching it, I guess, like, probably halfway through I was watching that, I was just visibly angry with the mom, you know? I was just like, why? Like, why in the hell are you doing this in the first place? And, like, yeah, you could argue, like, to protect your son and stuff, but, like, if the first kill, like, was an accident, he just pushed a little girl off the jungle gym, like, he didn't mean to kill her, you know? So, like, take him to therapy and stuff, and, like, you could argue, like, oh, well, that's what she did, and it never worked and stuff. Well, take him to more therapies. You're apparently rich, man. Like, you own this company, your name's on the side of the building is what you keep addressing. But, like, all in all, man, I don't know. I can't recommend this movie unless you just want to watch something for the sake of watching it, I guess, because that's what I did. I was sick, like, for a week, you know, and, like, I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna watch movies because that's the only thing that seems like I can do. So yeah, all in all, don't bother with this movie unless you just want, like, a wacky thing that gives you no explanations whatsoever. Like, I was waiting for, like, an after credit scene, I'm not gonna lie, but, like, all in all, man, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna stop this video at this point because this movie was so freaking weird to me. I can't even comprehend it. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Leave a like down below, subscribe, ring the bell, become a member. You get videos a day early, and check out the merch. So with that said, I have been Master Zero. Y'all guys have been fantastic, and I will see y'all in the next episode. Later days.